My name is Marcus Chen. I'm 28 years old, and I need you to believe what I'm about to tell you because 3 weeks ago, I thought people who believed in this stuff were absolutely insane. I'm a software engineer, a logical person, someone who believes in code and algorithms and things that make rational sense. But what happened to me in apartment 7B of the Thornfield Apartments in downtown Chicago shattered every logical belief I ever had, and I'm still trying to piece together my sanity. It started the day I moved in, September 15th, a Thursday. I remember because I'd been so excited to finally afford a place in the city after years of living with roommates in cramped studios. The apartment was a steal, honestly too good to be true. A spacious 2-bedroom in a pre-war building with original hardwood floors and those beautiful bay windows for only $1,200 a month in Lincoln Park. The landlord, Mrs. Kowalski, was this sweet elderly Polish woman who seemed almost too eager to rent it to me. "You're a good boy," she kept saying, patting my hand with her cold, papery fingers. "You'll understand. You'll help." I didn't know what she meant by that, and honestly, I was too focused on finally having my own space to ask questions. The first night was normal, quiet even. I ordered pizza, set up my computer, fell asleep on my air mattress because my furniture wouldn't arrive until the weekend. But around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of crying. Not just any crying, the desperate, heartbroken sobbing of someone in absolute anguish. I sat up, my heart pounding, listening. It was coming from inside the walls, or that's what it sounded like, muffled but unmistakable. A woman's voice, sobbing the same words over and over. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I didn't know." I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and checked every room. Nothing. No one. Just me in the shadows and that horrible, gut-wrenching crying that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I convinced myself it was the neighbors, thin walls in an old building, someone having a bad night. I put in earbuds, played white noise, and eventually fell back asleep. But the next night, it happened again. And the night after that. Always at 3 a.m., always the same words, always that same desperate anguish that made my chest feel tight and my eyes sting with sympathetic tears. By the end of the first week, I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't. I'd lie awake, waiting for 3 a.m., knowing it was coming, that voice that was starting to feel familiar in the worst possible way. I asked my neighbors, casual questions in the hallway or the mailroom. "Hey, do you ever hear weird noises at night?" They looked at me like I was crazy. "Weird noises? No, man. This building's actually pretty quiet. You adjusting okay to city life?" I started doubting my own sanity. Was I having some kind of breakdown? The stress from my new job, the pressure of living alone for the first time in years. Maybe it was manifesting as auditory hallucinations. I made an appointment with a therapist, Dr. Rachel Park, and I told her everything. She was professional, didn't make me feel insane, suggested it could be stress-related, and prescribed some sleep medication to help me rest. The medication didn't help. Nothing helped. Because on night 10, something changed. The crying stopped mid-sob, just cut off like someone had hit a pause button, and then I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps, walking from what sounded like inside my bedroom wall, across the floor above my head, then down, down, down until they stopped right outside my bedroom door. I couldn't breathe. I stared at that door, watching the gap underneath it, where light from the hallway should have been showing through, but instead there was shadow, like someone was standing there, blocking the light. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything, but I was paralyzed, frozen in that primal fear that shuts down your entire system. And then I heard it, so soft I almost missed it, a gentle knock. 3 taps. Knock, knock, knock. "Who's there?" My voice came out as a pathetic croak. No answer. Just another 3 knocks, more insistent this time. "What do you want?" Still nothing. Then the doorknob started to turn, so slowly, the old brass mechanism squeaking softly, and every hair on my body stood on end. The door opened, just a crack, and I saw her. A woman's silhouette, backlit by the hallway light, her features hidden in shadow, but I could feel her eyes on me, boring into me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and it was the same voice from the walls, but closer now, more real. "I'm so sorry. I need you to know what happened. I need someone to understand." And then she was gone, just vanished, and I was alone with my racing heart and the horrible certainty that I was not imagining this, that something was very, very wrong in apartment 7B. The next morning, I marched down to Mrs. Kowalski's apartment on the first floor and demanded answers. "Who lived in my apartment before me? What happened there?" She wouldn't look at me, just kept wringing her hands and muttering in Polish. Finally, she said, "Her name was Rebecca Holloway. She was a good girl like you. She didn't deserve what happened." "What happened, Mrs. Kowalski? Tell me!" She looked at me with these watery, sad eyes and whispered, "She died there, in your apartment 2 years ago. They said it was suicide, but I don't believe it. Rebecca loved life too much. Something else happened, something terrible, and her spirit can't rest until someone knows the truth." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. I'd been living with a ghost, an actual ghost, and nobody had thought to mention this before I signed the lease. "Why didn't you tell me? That's something people need to know." Mrs. Kowalski grabbed my arm with surprising strength, her eyes suddenly fierce. "Because everyone else ran away. They moved out within weeks, wouldn't even break the lease, just abandoned the place. But you, Marcus, you stayed. You listened. Maybe you're the one who can help her." What choice did I have? I couldn't afford to break my lease, couldn't afford to move again. And honestly, some part of me felt obligated now. Rebecca had been crying for help for 2 years, and I'd been hearing her. I'd been chosen, somehow, for this. So I did what any logical, skeptical software engineer would do. I started researching. I spent the next 3 days digging through everything I could find about Rebecca Holloway. News articles, social media, police reports I probably shouldn't have been able to access, but did thanks to some creative coding and a friend who worked in the city clerk's office. Rebecca was 31 when she died, a middle school art teacher, beloved by her students and colleagues. She had no history of depression, no warning signs, nothing that suggested she was suicidal. But what I found in her final weeks was disturbing. She'd made several complaints to the police about a man named Derek Vaughn, her ex-boyfriend, who'd been stalking her after their breakup 6 months prior. He'd show up at her school, send hundreds of threatening texts, even broke into her apartment once. But the police couldn't do enough because he was smart, careful, never left enough evidence for an arrest warrant. The night Rebecca died, August 3rd, 2 years ago, her death was ruled a suicide. The report said she'd taken a massive overdose of sleeping pills and alcohol. But here's what didn't make sense. Her apartment door was unlocked when they found her. Her phone was missing and never recovered, and neighbors reported hearing arguing in her apartment that night. But police found no signs of anyone else being there. That's when I knew. Rebecca wasn't telling me she was sorry for dying. She was apologizing because she couldn't prove what had happened to her, couldn't make anyone believe that Derek had killed her and made it look like suicide. She'd been crying for 2 years, trapped in the place where she died, desperate for someone to uncover the truth and bring her justice. So that night, night 14, I waited for 3 a.m. I didn't try to sleep, didn't take medication, just sat on my couch with every light on, waiting. When I heard the crying start, I spoke out loud. "Rebecca, I know what happened to you. I know about Derek. I believe you. and I'm going to help you prove it. But I need you to show me. Show me what happened that night." The crying stopped immediately, replaced by a silence so profound it felt like the entire building was holding its breath. Then the lights went out, all of them, plunging me into darkness. I felt a cold hand take mine, fingers interlacing with my own, and that same gentle voice whispered directly in my ear. "Thank you. Finally, someone believes me. I'll show you everything, but you have to be strong. What you're about to see, it's going to be terrible." I nodded, even though I was terrified, and suddenly, I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I was watching it from outside my own body, like a movie playing out in front of me. I saw Rebecca, a beautiful woman with dark curly hair and kind eyes, getting ready for bed. She was humming, seemed happy, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Then I saw the door open, slowly, quietly. Derek Vaughn stepped inside, and I saw his face clearly, memorizing every feature. He had a key, must have made a copy before she'd changed the locks. Rebecca didn't even hear him until he was in her bedroom doorway. The fear on her face, the way she scrambled backward, trying to reach her phone. But he was faster. He grabbed the phone, smashed it, and then he was on her, his hands around her throat, screaming at her about how she'd ruined his life by leaving him. How if he couldn't have her, nobody would. I watched her fight. God, she fought so hard, but he was stronger, and eventually, she stopped moving. Then, with horrifying calm, Derek pulled out sleeping pills from his pocket, pills he'd obviously brought with him, and he forced them down her throat, poured vodka after them, staging the whole scene to look like suicide. He whispered to her lifeless body, "I'm sorry it had to be this way, Becca, but you should have stayed with me. This is your fault." I snapped back to my own body, to my dark apartment, and I was sobbing, shaking, feeling like I'd just been murdered myself. The lights flickered back on, and standing in front of me was Rebecca, fully visible for the first time, looking exactly as she had in the vision. She smiled at me, tears streaming down her translucent face. "You saw. You know the truth. But seeing isn't enough. You need proof, real proof that the police will believe." "The phone," I said suddenly. "Your phone. He smashed it, but he must have taken it with him, or hidden it somewhere. If we can find it, there might be texts, evidence of his threats, his presence here that night." Rebecca's eyes lit up with desperate hope. "The ventilation shaft in the bedroom closet. I saw him, right before I passed out. He shoved something metal up there. I tried to tell them, tried to make them look, but no one could hear me. I ran to the bedroom closet, started pulling down boxes and clothes, looking for the vent cover. There it was, old and painted over, but definitely removable. I grabbed a screwdriver, pried it open, and reached inside. My fingers closed around something cold and rectangular. I pulled it out, and there it was. Rebecca's phone, the screen shattered but the device intact. I charged it overnight, and the next morning, it powered on. The screen was damaged but functional, and what I found made my blood run cold. Hundreds of threatening messages from Derek, photos he'd taken of her without her knowledge, and most damning of all, GPS data showing he was at her apartment, at this apartment, the night she died, when he told police he was at home alone. I took everything to the police, along with my testimony about what Mrs. Kowalski had told me, about the neighbors hearing arguing, about all the inconsistencies in the original investigation. I recorded a detailed statement about how I'd found the phone, carefully leaving out the part about ghosts, because I wanted them to take me seriously. They reopened Rebecca's case. They brought Derek in for questioning, and when confronted with the phone evidence, with the timeline that didn't match his alibi, he cracked. Completely fell apart and confessed to everything. Derek Vaughn was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. The trial was quick. The evidence was overwhelming. He's serving life in prison now, no possibility of parole, and Rebecca Holloway's death certificate was officially amended from suicide to homicide. Her name was cleared, her family finally got justice, and the truth came out. The night of Derek's sentencing, I came home to my apartment, and I could feel the difference immediately. The air felt lighter, warmer, like a weight had been lifted. I sat on my couch and I said out loud, "You can rest now, Rebecca. Justice was served. Everyone knows the truth. You were brave and strong, and you deserved so much better than what happened to you. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for not giving up." The lights dimmed gently, not scary this time, but peaceful, and I felt that cold hand touch my shoulder one last time, squeezing softly. Rebecca's voice came one final time, but it wasn't crying anymore. It was filled with peace, with gratitude, with relief. "Thank you, Marcus. You gave me what I couldn't give myself. You made them see me, hear me, believe me. I can go now. I can finally go home." And then I saw her, fully, completely, standing in front of me, bathed in golden light, just like Eleanor had been in Jennifer's story. She looked happy, genuinely happy, younger somehow, like all the pain and fear had melted away. She waved at me, this small, grateful wave, and then she walked into that light and disappeared, leaving behind only the faint scent of lavender and the feeling of profound peace. I still live in apartment 7B. Mrs. Kowalski offered to move me, but I said no. This place doesn't scare me anymore. It's just an apartment, and Rebecca isn't trapped here any longer. Sometimes I light a candle for her, especially on August 3rd, the anniversary of her death, and I tell her story to anyone who will listen, because she deserves to be remembered for who she was. A kind, talented teacher who loved her students and her life, not just as a victim. What I learned from Rebecca is that justice matters, even after death, maybe especially after death. That truth has power, and sometimes the dead need the living to speak for them when they can't speak for themselves. I learned that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. And I learned that evil people like Derek Vaughn count on everyone being too afraid or too skeptical to challenge the official story. But when someone does, when someone has the courage to dig deeper and demand answers, the truth always comes out. This experience changed me fundamentally. I'm not the same person who moved into this apartment 5 months ago. I started volunteering with a domestic violence advocacy group, helping survivors navigate the legal system, using my tech skills to help them document evidence and protect themselves. I've helped 6 women so far get restraining orders against their abusers, and I like to think Rebecca would be proud of that her story is saving other people's lives. I also met someone through the advocacy group, another volunteer named Lisa, who understands what I went through because she's a survivor herself. She doesn't think I'm crazy for believing in ghosts, for knowing that Rebecca was real and needed help. We've been dating for 2 months now, and she's sleeping over more and more often, and I think Rebecca would like her, would approve of someone good and kind sharing this space that used to hold so much pain. Sometimes late at night, when I can't sleep, I think about how close Rebecca came to being forgotten, to being just another statistic, another woman whose murder was written off as something else because it was easier, because it was more convenient. I think about all the other Rebeccas out there, people who died in suspicious circumstances, whose voices were silenced not just by their killers, but by systems that failed them. And I wonder how many ghosts are crying in the walls, waiting for someone brave enough to listen. But I also think about the power of one person choosing to care, choosing to believe, choosing to act. I was just a software engineer who wanted a cheap apartment in a good neighborhood. I wasn't looking to become a ghost hunter or a justice crusader. But sometimes life or death calls on us to be more than we thought we were, and we have to answer that call. We have to be the person who stops and listens when everyone else walks away. We have to be the voice for the voiceless, the believer in the unbelievable, the one who refuses to accept the easy answer when the truth is harder but necessary. If you're hearing this story and thinking about someone in your life who needs help, someone being abused or stalked or threatened, please don't look away. Please don't tell yourself it's not your business or that they'll figure it out on their own. Be like Rebecca. Be brave enough to reach out. And if you're the one in danger, please know that there are people who will believe you, who will help you, who will fight for your safety and your justice. You don't have to suffer in silence. You don't have to become a ghost before anyone listens. The Thornfield Apartments are quiet now, peaceful. The only sounds at night are normal city sounds, traffic, distant sirens, neighbors coming home late. No more crying at 3 a.m., no more desperate pleas for help, no more footsteps in the walls. Rebecca is at peace. Derek is in prison, and I'm living a life I never imagined, one filled with purpose and meaning and the knowledge that I made a difference when it mattered most. This is Marcus Chen, former skeptic, current believer, and forever advocate for those who can't speak for themselves. My message to you is this: don't ignore the whispers in the walls, whether they're literal ghosts or metaphorical cries for help from the living. Pay attention, care deeply, and then fighting for the truth. Because somewhere out there, someone is waiting for you to be the hero in their story, to be the one who believes them when no one else will, to be the light that guides them home. And to Rebecca, wherever you are now, thank you for choosing me, for trusting me with your truth, for teaching me that death isn't the end if someone remembers you with love and fights for your justice. You made me a better person, a braver person, and I promise I'll keep telling your story, keep fighting for others like you, keep being the voice that refuses to let the silenced be forgotten. Rest in peace, Rebecca Holloway. You were heard, you were believed, you were loved, and you will never, ever be forgotten again. Sometimes justice takes someone unexpected to deliver it. Sometimes it takes a ghost and a scared software engineer who didn't know what he was getting into but couldn't walk away. But it always, always matters. And happy endings? They're possible, even in the darkest situations, even when death has already come. Because peace and justice and truth are endings worth fighting for. That's the real story. That's what Rebecca taught me. And that's what I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing. And thank you, Rebecca, for everything.